Let's try this again. Hey, guys. How's everyone's day? Ours is pretty good.
About to get better
It's
now that we just dropped this.
Pal, you nailed it. Your ears will thank you after this one. And your mind will, too.
And your bank account.
Oh, that is for damn sure. Guys, my name is George Boutsalis.
And I'm your boy, Ricky Liordi.
Oh, hey, I like that one. And this week, we had our boy Trevor Koverko on the Pals podcast. And for those who don't know, Trevor's a former NHL draft pick to the New York City Rangers. He was too talented. They said that you're too good. You're making the team look bad. So gonna put him. They're gonna try his hand in something else. So Trevor made a switch and tried his hand in Silicon Valley. And he calls himself a 10-year crypto noob. You got to listen to find out what that means. I think I'll leave it at that. Rick, you want to hit him with it?
Yeah, we want to give a big shout out to our friends over at High Rise Marketing. Anthony Mila, one of our good boys, longtime listener, such a good dude. And High Rise Marketing specializes in digitizing your business. During the pandemic, obviously a lot of things have changed, but one thing that has remained the same is the importance of having an online presence for your brand and for your company. So check them out at High Rise Marketing for all your needs and to digitize your business, to create social media platform, and really just create a strong online presence. So check them out at www.highrisemkt.com or at highrisemkt on Instagram. And Georgie, what do we say?
LFG.
Let's go. Boom.
We're good. There we go.
Welcome. Trevor, welcome to the Pals podcast.
Man, it's been a long time coming.
Long time coming. We were supposed to do this during COVID via Skype, and I forget why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Then we were supposed to do it last week. We couldn't get it. So now you're finally in the studio.
Hey, wouldn't have it any other way.
That's it, eh? The vibes, man.
Better we got in the studio.
Better.
The online stuff's not as fun. The studio's
Good
got
things happen to good people.
There we go.
That's it. Actually, I do believe that. Good people, good things, good vibes.
Good vibes, good energy.
What's it like? Your attitude determines your
I
latitude.
saw on the top of your desk there, no time for negative bullshit.
Yeah.
I saw that. So
Yeah.
I checked it at the door on the way in. I'm like, this guy doesn't have time for that.
Well, honestly, I believe that. Like, the more people say, there's that saying where you work hard, you get luckier. I feel like if you just put out good vibes and positive vibes, typically stuff comes back. If you have a cynical mindset or you're a negative person, you kind of attract that.
It's so true. I forget. You guys heard of Naval?
Yeah, I listen to all his podcasts.
Yeah,
or his episodes.
There's this book that came out called the Navalmanac or something.
Okay.
And it's some guy who just consolidated all of his stuff into one book, so I just bought it. But one of his things was you can interpret anything positively or negatively. There's unlimited amount of ways to interpret something negatively. So it's on you to take something and look back on it and think of ways to look at it positively. Yeah. So I think I totally subscribe to that.
Yeah. Actually, Naval, so I got on him. So just so you know, Naval Ravikant, he used to be an angel investor in Silicon Valley, did very well. Him and his brother had a company. I forget the name of it, but he basically started tweeting a lot to get his thoughts out. And a lot of them are kind of cliche tweets, but they're just they're really obvious. Some of them are truisms, and it's just little tidbits. That's again, it's how you frame certain things. And he's considers himself, I guess, a modern day philosopher almost.
Okay. Yeah.
And he started a podcast. So if you listen, it's all 1 minute clips of his tweets, and they read.
So
them all
the podcast,
together.
each episode is just one
a minute,
minutes.
30 seconds.
Oh,
he
perfect.
pasted them all together now, so you can listen an hour and a half straight.
Just thoughts.
Yeah, I've listened to it a few times through. And now he's a new one called Spearhead that he did recently with his business partner, I guess, and it's a lot of tech-related stuff.
Yep.
So really
he's Silicon Valley kind of mentality.
Yeah, I really like him. I like his vibe. And some stuff he says, you're like, okay, this is obvious, but then you don't realize that you fall into the traps that he says, a lot of people do, right?
I saw the book collection up there. I thought you might know
a
thing or two.
So I actually, Naval's brother, Nivi, he wrote a book called Love Yourself or something. One day I just came through it and I was like, let me give this a listen. I got it on Audible. A little bit too self-helpy for me, but it was a good listen, interesting to hear.
He's
his story.
a beauty. I met him randomly in California in Malibu. We had a sushi dinner at Nobu.
No shit.
I didn't even know who he was at the time, and he's just he's a beauty. He's a beauty. he's a legitimate beauty.
Well, speaking of the West Coast, I guess you're a student of Silicon Valley in a sense. You spent some time out there working in the tech world.
To me, it's just I have a huge hard on for Silicon Valley. It's
at least you can admit it.
It's part of when we were growing up, California and like all the shows we used to watch and just glamorizing it. But like in terms of business, in terms of, personal growth, it's just like, it's the real deal. And a lot of stuff now you can get online. You don't have to like move there. It's more of a mindset than it is like an actual physical location. But in terms of just like operating a business, in terms of like doing things the right way, not being like too flashy. That's what I like about it too. No one like drives Ferraris. It doesn't matter how rich you are. No one has like Gucci bags and stuff. It's like it's very like substance over sizzle in Silicon Valley. So that's kind of like what I like about it.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and unless I'm gonna rewind a little bit, I want to know, and I'm sure our listeners do, how did you go from an NHL draft pick with the Rangers, I think, to tech entrepreneur, blockchain entrepreneur, crypto? Like, tell us the story, because most hockey players don't find themselves in this space at this age, right? It's usually they play hockey, retire, and then you've got extra cash, you invest, and yada, yada, yada.
Well, it started in New York. The coach called me in one day and he said, "Son, you're just too good." I was like, I get it. Like, I see where you're coming from. Like, how can I be mad about that?
You're too good.
You're too good. That's it. You gotta hang him up. Mark Messier.
King Henry's getting a little bit jealous. You gotta here, put the puppets over there. Go.
I actually tweeted at Lundqvist the other day because he's like, he got cut or something from the Rangers.
Got bought out.
And I remember, man, because I was drafted in 2005 and he was undrafted, and it was his first rookie camp, and my first camp, and all the older guys.
Wait, sorry, you went to rookie camp with Henrik Lundqvist?
Yeah, dude. This story is unbelievable.
This is crazy.
And we go for dinner.
So pull it a little. There
we go. So we go out for dinner, and all the old guys are getting like steak dinners. We're in Terrytown, New York. That's where the camp was. And then me and Henrik are like the lowest of the totem pole guys. I was a 5th round draft pick. He's undrafted, and we were broke. And we go to half price appetizers at Applebee's. And then just me and him just crushing like Twizzlers over it for half price appies at Applebee's. And he's just like the nicest guy, so chill, and just like I'll always remember that. Just like the king of New York.
Yeah, and now he's the king, or formerly the king of New York.
Yeah.
So you were too good. Yes, we know.
Too good, like Henrik, of course. And, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because I retired when I was young, in like early 20s. So I could see it's kind of tough if to transition and reinvent yourself when you get a bit older, potentially. I know a lot of guys do it still, but, kind of a blessing in disguise in that way. Had some injuries, had shoulder surgery, got in a car accident as well. That kind of fully derailed kind of the career. And I was like, all right, we got to start from scratch. And all my money signing bonuses and stuff, like all that was gone. And I was like, all right, got to
figure it out.
Fresh page. And, I knew I wanted to go back to school. So I, retired or whatever, and then went back to school, enrolled at Western, went to the business school there. And I was just like, I got to find a new identity, because that's all I did, as you guys know, man.
Yeah,
in
hockey
Canada.
players, all you know is hockey.
And if for those listeners who aren't Canadian, basically, if you don't play hockey as a boy in Canada, you get deported, and you get they send you out of here somewhere, like back to like California or something. But so that was kind of starting from scratch again, and it was kind of a fresh page for me, and kind of what I knew I wanted to do was something impactful, because like once you live the life a little bit and you taste it, like I remember that in New York, man, it's such in the hockey days, it's such a first class organization. I remember we went to an exhibition game, and you take the charter jet, and then you land, and they have like the old guys have their cars idling for them in the airport. It's just like it's so unbelievable, kind of living that life. And I was like, man, that was cool. I really want to, do something impactful and kind of figure out what to do. So that was kind of the journey in my early 20s to figure out what to do after hockey. So. And
you went to Ivey, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that's how I met you, through Sweens.
Yes. Sweens.
Shout out Sweens.
What's up, Patty? And Pete, the boys. But so yeah, long story short, I decided to go back to school. I really enjoyed my experience there. I actually left a little bit early because I was really getting into the tech world then, and startups and early stage kind of investing and things like that. And I wasn't an engineer per se, but I could kind of understand a lot of the concepts and the architecture of these programs. And I got to network with a lot of really smart software engineers. As soon as I was in school, I kind of knew that's who I wanted to kind of connect with. And that's what I did. I decided my last year, between third and fourth year, I actually left. I was applying to all these programs for startups, basically. And I tell people I ended up in China. That was the place I decided to go to between third and fourth year. Wow. And people are like, why'd you go to China? And there's two answers.
Let's hear them.
The fake answer is like, well, I saw the mega trend of China coming and I decided to like do that intelligently. The real answer is like, we applied to every single, they're called accelerator programs or incubator programs, like literally on planet Earth, hundreds of them.
Y Combinator,
Techstars, all of them.
Yeah.
Isn't Mars the big one in Toronto?
Mars is another one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Got rejected from every single one of them except
the one in China.
Called SOS Ventures, which is actually a really good program. It's not like, and so we're like, hell yeah. So me and my co-founder went to Asia to kind of dive in head first, and that was kind of the beginning of the journey.
What with your co-founder at the time? What was the app, the platform? What did you co-found, and what was the idea behind it?
So it was called eprof.com, and that was, I guess, my first kind of main business that I started, and it was online education. That was something I was like kind of passionate about, and I saw the mega trend coming, and that's what we did. We went down. We were learning all the like everything about company building that you don't learn in school per se, and it's not intuitive. You have to it's a learnable skill. So like how to hire people, how to structure a company, how to set up proper governance and reporting lines, how to raise money, how to compensate people, how to do all these skills. And we didn't know anything. So it was kind of a long process. But the one thing, kind of my mindset back then was like, I'm okay with two things. Like I'm okay with being broke and like, just living in my parents' basement. And I'm also like, okay, of trying to do something really big and impactful. So what I didn't want was something in the middle, like just even the path I was on at school of kind of like going to finance, doing consulting, doing investment banking, doing accounting, things like this. Good skills and fun and everything, but I kind of knew early while I was in school, I was like, I don't know if that's for me, if I'm going to be like satisfied and impactful, kind of doing the path that they kind of put you on there. So that was one thing I knew, and I wanted to kind of go venture off and do my own thing. So
do something big, change the world.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and it led you to China.
So then what happened in China? You didn't get into incubators, you got into SOS, and then what came about from there? Like what was the next move? What did the next couple of years kind of look like?
Yeah, so that was the beginning of the journey, and literally since then, I just haven't looked back, and I've been starting companies, succeeding, failing. I've had some wins and losses along the way, and just been really like a hyper learning as much as I can along the way and trying to build my network. But that was kind of the first business, and since then I've probably done 5 or 6 kind of major projects, and then transitioned into kind of what I'm doing today. So
the first one was eProf.
Yep.
What was the second?
I got into.
Wait, sorry. And what happened with eProf? Is that a rude question?
Shut down?
Yeah, no, we had we basically transitioned it into a separate business, and that's kind of a trend that everything kind of rebirths into a new thing. It's kind of a pivot and going on, and basically, gosh, I really got into one of the skills that I learned was kind of marketing, online marketing, internet marketing, and that was something that I enjoyed and I was good at, and whether that was for eProf or whether that was for other businesses. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed like buying companies and being an investor and taking them over and learning the skills of operating to say, hey, let's buy a company kind of private equity style and vend it in. So that's kind of what happened next for me, is I started doing online businesses, like trying to get recurring revenue, subscription revenue by launching software products online. So that was kind of phase 2 for me, is I had a friend of mine from Goldman Sachs, Devin Sunny, and I started an investment fund that acquired high margin, highly profitable online businesses, including like eProf at the beginning that we kind of vended in, and then we kind of went went from there afterwards. So that was kind of part 2 after starting a company from scratch.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Like, I encourage people to look at this. It's a really fascinating world. Like, we have these brokers online that sell businesses, and these are like, I remember the first deal I looked at, it was a keyword research tool. So it's like, if you're trying to start a business and do SEO, or you're trying to like get training wheels on how to do it, this is a great way to help guide you along the way. And I called the guy because you go to a broker, they give you a prospectus, and they say, this is the business, this is the financials, this is the pros and the cons of the business. Would you like to buy it? And I said, yeah, I'm interested in acquiring it. And they said, and he said, okay. And I said, how much? And he said, deals like this go for about 18 times trailing EBITDA. So that was like the metric. So profit and a multiple, and that's the price. That's like PE ratios for stocks or whatever. And it was 18, and I was like, oh, that seems a little high.
What's this industry standard?
Yeah, and I didn't really know at the time.
It varies by industry.
No, but for tech, isn't there like an industry standard for tech? No,
I don't know. Is there any?
It
varies a lot.
It's crazy, right?
Because like somebody could buy you and your EBITDA. Like if a regular guy went and bought him, it could be like a 7-10 times multiple. But if somebody's gonna buy you, might have a synergy and be able to like amalgamate it and just blow the roof off it. It could be like they'll pay you a 20 times multiple. I think it matters on a case by case basis.
Exactly.
That's a guess.
Yeah.
I'm just
and like you look at like Facebook and stuff. These are like 100 times, or it's because of the growth. You could have huge
future
multiples.
earnings, whatever. Yeah.
But so he said 18x, and I was like, that seems a little high. I kind of know the space. And he's like, no, not 18 times. Not 18 times annual EBITDA, 18 times monthly EBITDA. And I was like, wait a minute, that's like 1x, 2x. That's like crazy. That's like, I can pay this thing back in a year in cash flows. And I go, but it turns out there's this world that I discovered of micro cap online business investing. And that, to your question, that's the market rate for micro cap businesses that are too small for venture capital and private equity. There's this world of like, online businesses. We had content sites like a men's hairstyle blog we bought called Hairstyle on Point, and we bought that for like under 2x trailing EBITDA multiples. So anyways, I really dove into that world of like, it was kind of the merger of finance and tech, the two things I was passionate about. And we built a portfolio of online businesses, and just with our own capital and a few other limited partners, we got up to 5 million EBITDA across the fund in the first year. And that was kind of a big, exciting thing for me because it had cash flows, it had growth, it had things of a lot of challenges around like operations and corporate structuring and things like this. But I encourage a lot of people to look into this. Like, you can, instead of just starting stuff, you can buy businesses that already have product market fit, that already have revenue. You don't even have to use your own money. In some cases, there's lots of ways you can do it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned this. My brother actually, so he started a little online store on Amazon selling these little ring holders. He saw a video on YouTube, watched a couple more, read a couple articles. So he found this program that shows you what products on Amazon that there's, I guess, the least amount of products, but the most amount of people buying them in comparison. So let's say there's 10,000 customers, there's only 500 products.
Yep.
So the percentage was really low. So he created this ring holder, and he's apparently selling a lot of them all on Amazon with the marketing budgets and whatever. And he showed me this website where you can go and buy online stores. So they're all e-commerce stores that have sales. They're already generating. They have X amount of monthly visitors or weekly, whatever. And I had no idea about any of this. I was like, how do you even find this? He goes, yeah, all online.
That's called Amazon FBA, fulfillment by Amazon. That's a niche. So if you're looking at buying online businesses, you got to pick a vertical. So FBA is its own little silo, and then there's
a little bit in more. There we go.
So there we go.
Right. And
Better?
straighten her out a bit right there.
Amazon FBA is an example of a silo. So that's one. Another one is SaaS. So B2B SaaS is like
software.
Recurring revenue. You have software and people pay a monthly subscription to get access to it. And then there's content, and content is its own vertical. So like blogs, like literally you serve ads and then you get money based on how many viewers and how many clicks you have. So there's 4 or 5 kind of major verticals, and they all have different.
Sorry, you mentioned 3. What are the other 2?
There's productized services. So these are like, you hire a bunch of people to do something. It's not software. It's like people doing the work. So it's like
a Fiverr?
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like that. I'm trying to think of an example. It's like
Upwork, yeah.
someone, it's a group. What was the one that we bought? Like consultants, basically. You have a group of people that you charge X for and you pay them Y for, and then you get the margin.
The percentage. Yeah.
It's a little harder, those businesses, because there's a lot of management and HR involved. So there's like 4 or 5 different niches that you can do it, and each one of them has different pricing. So SaaS is the most expensive. Everybody wants B2B SaaS businesses. Everybody. Venture capital wants it. Private equity wants it. It's stable. It's recurring. Public markets love this. If you look at the most expensive stocks in the world right now, Snowflake is an example.
Just had their IPO and then Buffett buy like $1 billion worth of it or something.
Oh my gosh, this CEO they brought in, this is a separate story, but like is such a legend. They brought in this professional CEO called Frank Slootman for this IPO. Snowflake, it was like the most.
Snowflake, sorry, just to clarify, Snowflake's it's security.
Data warehouse.
Data warehouse.
Kind of like Amazon, kind of web service kind of competitor. And it's such a investors love data, subscription revenue, B2B. Like this is like the formula that they love. Anyways, they brought this guy. They airlifted the CEO in. This happens a lot when founders start a company, and then when it gets to a certain scale, sometimes the founder can stick with it the whole way through and become the founder of a small idea into the operator of a huge enterprise business, but that's pretty rare. So you see guys like Steve Jobs have done it, Bill Gates, but at some point, usually you have to hand the baton to like more seasoned
Happened
operators.
with like Uber when they did the culture shift. They brought in, the K, but anyways, they got Travis Kalanick out, but the new guy came in.
I can't believe they did that, man. Like Travis is such a legend, and like I think it was Benchmark or some VC firm. They fired him. I'm like, man, this guy created. I was kind of like,
I think more so from what I gathered. I don't know enough about the story, but I gathered more so was like, if you're gonna start scaling that big, some of the press that's coming out, not just around him, but again the culture, whether it was coming, what happened with drivers in the news. Again, that's not something he can control per se, but I think he just bear the brunt of a lot of it.
You know, like the concept of like a player's coach.
Yeah.
So I'm like a fan of the coach. Like the coach is a player. The players come first. Like I'm like that when it comes to founders. It's like
you like the player founder.
The founders like are the ones I support, and if they ever like screw up or do something, I'm like I can empathize because it's really hard. But anyways, so this guy Frank Slootman is just like this Dutch guy, and he's such a ruthless manager and just so no nonsense. He doesn't like waste his time with like making statements about society and politics. He's just like laser focused, and he's like customer first, always customer first, even more than the employees. He's like customers always come first. You notice that between like guys like Jeff Bezos, it's all about the customer first. That's the number one thing. And sometimes product, if you're like Elon Musk and you have Teslas and whatnot. So that to me is kind of what I like. I like guys and girls who can like really implement a really rigorous operational rubric and run a company. To me, that's the hard part. It's easy to be the ideas guy and to come up with all these concepts, but to actually like rubber hits the road, get shit done, hire people, generate revenue, like that to me is the
scale it up in an efficient way, like all those things. Yeah. And
then back to the acquiring these businesses, because it all is aligned, right? Like if you buy a business, you're an investor and you're the owner, but you need operators to run the company. Sometimes that's you. That's one thing they didn't really teach you in school, is that there's two kind of classes of business people. There's owners and investors. So these are like money managers and venture capital and private equity. These are people who allocate money. And then there's management. And this is people who run the companies. If you go to business school, you're going to be a manager.
Yeah.
They teach you. It's the Richard Ivey School of Management.
They're not teaching you how to be an entrepreneur or an investor. But actually, I would say there's probably a middle as well. There's almost like the founder, the owner, operator, like the in-between, right? Like there's no one that teaches you that side. You can go, like a lot of guys go to Ivey and go in. A lot of friends that have gone into investment banking, a lot of friends in management, but they don't teach you. I don't even think you can, to be honest, teach a lot of that, like the creative spark, the idea stuff, and marrying how to invest smart, grow the business and scale it as an investment banker would, how to manage as well and combine those talents.
But I think it's important to kind of, everyone wants to be everything, but it's kind of like if you really like doing due diligence, being thoughtful, raising money like this for like a fund, then you want to be an investor and you want to get into money management, allocation, and building portfolios and things like that. If you like the human part of it and like holding people accountable, performance reviews, running companies, then you want to be an operator. But I think it's important to kind of pick one side and really try to excel at one of the two. If you try to do too many things at once, it's hard to juggle, all those different balls. But
so you find yourself choosing the investor owner side rather than the management side?
I think for me over my career, and I think some of the best investors, like in venture capital, are actually former operators. And if you're running a company, you're putting a board together, you want an operator on your board who can help guide you as the CEO through like important operational decisions. But for me, I've kind of learned, I started out as CEO worshiping. Like, I want to be the CEO. I want to be the man in charge. I want to be the Steve Jobs. Being a CEO sucks. It's like really, it's not glamorous. You're a slave to multiple groups. You're a slave to your employees. You're a slave to your customers, and it's fun.
Slave to the investors as well. Everybody, you have to make everybody happy.
And it's not a glamorous job. And to me, I've kind of always been the CEO, and I've always tried to be the CEO. But as my career's gone on, I've kind of realized that might not be kind of my natural born gifts as just pure operations. I like kind of being more on the strategy sides of things. And then knowing yourself is extremely important, because if you enjoy operations, that's what you should do. If you enjoy strategy, then what you have to do is find operators who can execute on your strategy and hold them accountable. But they're kind of two different skill sets, and that's why a director of a company on the board is going to have a certain set of skills and experience, and then, like we said before, the operators and the management are going to have kind of a different set. But I think for guys like us, like, it's smaller. It's like starting companies. It's not like if you go to Ivey and you want to go work at a massive multinational. That's a whole different skill set than, we want to buy small companies. We want to start companies and scale them up. So that's another kind of dimension here is like, do you want to work at a huge, massive and then be a small cog in the wheel or whatever?
Yeah,
or do you want to like create something from scratch? And there's nothing wrong. Like, it's important to have both components, but
and some people like both. They excel at both. Personally speaking, like to your question or to your point there, like I prefer to have like start small, have my hands involved and stuff, and grow.
Yeah.
I will say, like, just even jump back to your point about like knowing yourself, know your role. Like, I grew up in a family business, so we have a commercial cleaning company, like
nice.
Facility services. And I was I have myself, my sister, my brother. Me and my brother are more involved in the business. We have been from a young age, right out of university. And I thought, like, similar to that, I'm like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be the best at everything. I'm going to be VP Ops. I'm going to be Director of Finance, like all these things. More ego talking, right?
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you realize you can't be all things. And not only that, like my brother has a good point, and I'm very grateful to work with him because we're like yin and yang. My skill, like we have like the exact opposite skills, some overlap, but like strategy kind of overlaps, but he's like the finance guy. I'm like the ops and strategy guy. But like one thing you notice, you have to be really honest with yourself, because like your brother's like, look, George, you probably could learn the finance. Like, cause he does it now, but he's like, you probably could learn it. You'd run it okay. But he goes, if I'm 5 or 10x better than you and you're like here, even having you involved is going to be a detriment. You're going to pull us down. So he goes, if you're 10x better than our next best person at ops, let's say, or sale, whatever it is, focus on that. Yeah. You can be involved here if you want to learn it, but trying to be the wearer of all hats at all times, it limits the scalability of the company.
Absolutely.
So like my dad did kind of everything. He started the business, grew it, and he could do all those things. And he knows that I can't bullshit him at all. He knows every part of the business. But he said, like, you got to start. Me and my brother in ops, so we know how we started as janitors. We learned how the company is run. Hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it. Couldn't stand it. But then now I know how our operations is run. And then I moved over to the business development side and kind of learned a little bit of everything. But until recently, I didn't realize that. I thought I can control everything from the top, be like this future CEO and do it all.
Yeah. But
you need people who have very refined skills. And you have to know what your skills are and kind of focus on those, hone in on those.
And now you know the business inside out, and you can run it a lot more kind of intuitively because you've been there. And I think that's important as well. And it's kind of a balancing act between getting in the weeds, something I struggle with sometimes, like getting into the weeds and learning kind of the DNA of whatever project you're working on, but also stepping back and making sure strategically you're going in the right direction and you have the right people doing the right things. Like Jim Collins always says, who's on the bus and which way is the bus going? So you need to find the team and then you need to tell the team, what to do. And if either one of those two components is wrong, you're going to have a struggling business over the long run.
To one of the points you were saying earlier, George, I think it's important that finding the right people and letting the people who are good at their job do their job.
Yeah.
Right? Like, again, everyone, when our dads were younger, they did everything because they had to. The company was small. Once you grow to a certain size, you have people in place that if the owner's not there or if one manager's not there, the company should still run on its own. It's the owner's responsibility to manage your managers and make sure that they're doing their jobs and they're doing it to the best of their capabilities. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, no one person can do everything in a big company. Yeah, in a small business, 5-person company, yeah, you can get your hands involved in everything. But the bigger you get, it's important to let go and let the people who are good at their jobs do their jobs. Like that's at least my dad's biggest problem. My dad wants to manage every department. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Dad, there's 2 people in this company. My dad and my uncle, they own the business. There's 2 people in this company that can do what you do, you and your brother. There's 1 million people, not 1 million, sorry, we're only maybe 200 people, but there's other people that can price jobs. You shouldn't have to price them. There's only 2 people that can review the bids and decide what markup you want to do. There's only 2 people that can create those relationships with those high-level execs and those partner companies. So do the things that only you and him can do.
Yep.
Take the president of Ellis Dawn for around the golf, or do lunches here, network, do
the
those things.
high leverage things.
Yeah. Let the things like, I see my dad doing takeoffs sometimes. And Dad, if you're listening, please stop doing takeoffs. Please.
Dad, come on now.
Like, I see him sometimes. I'm like,
what's a takeoff?
So takeoffs, like when you're just starting to price a job, you got to do the takeoffs, right? And I don't know much about estimating. John can talk more about this, but I know what they look like when someone's doing it, because you got the highlighters everywhere. There's yellow, there's blue. You're basically just outlining the things that need to be priced. And I'm like, this is the basic entry level things to the job. This is a student just graduated university. That's what they can do. That's that's a good job for them. And I see my dad doing it. I'm like, you are the most expensive person to be doing this.
And to your point, if your business can't run without you, you don't have a business. You have a job.
Yeah.
And that's literally the differentiator. Yeah. Like, you have to abstract yourself away to, like you said, focus on the things that move the needle. I struggle with this sometimes too. In my current business, it's like the best use of my time is very high leverage things. Yep. And by the way,
things that only you can do.
Fundraising, setting the strategy, running the board, big deals that like really move the needle. Like that's, and sometimes it's tempting to just like do the little things first, and then you just kind of bang off all these little things and you get caught in the weeds, and then you kind of miss the big picture. And I've been on both sides of that in my career.
That thing that's saying that you can't see the forest through the trees or something like that. Like you kind of get caught in it. Just one thing to your point too. Like I posted a video on my Instagram the other day. Like I pulled up to the office and my dad's outside on his cell phone with like a broom in his hand sweeping. And like I'm looking at him, and like not to say that he's above cleaning anymore. Like my dad is crazy OCD. He cleans all the time. But like he's wearing a suit, so I'm like, I know my dad's clumsy, so he's gonna dirty himself. But I was like, listen, like we have people at the office doing the cleaning, like not something you do. But I think at that point, when you grow something from nothing to something, the old mentality of back in the day, a business was like more to that point, more like making a job. Like it's building a company, but it's more so support families and all that stuff. Whereas I think the mentality and the shift, which you can probably speak to more in the last, let's say, decade or two with the .com booms, all that stuff, is a shift towards scalability, but also culture as well. And the culture is big because, like, to your point, which we focus on, is empowering people to make decisions, and also empowering people to not be scared of making mistakes. Even that fear of failure.
Like your family, but like I respect them so much because it's way harder than what I do. In the real world, you've got physical products, you've got marginal cost. Like that's the beauty of tech, and that's what really drew me to it. Is you have infinite leverage. You can sell a product infinitely amount of times. It's software. It replicates itself, and people who can build like brick and mortar businesses and scale them out, I think it's kind of like hardware versus software. It's just like way harder, and I have a lot of respect for people. But for me, I'm kind of like trying to strategically and tactically say, where can I get the most impact? And for me, that's in the online world with tech and software and things like this.
I was just gonna ask, so then what does that look like for you now? Like I know there's one thing I saw in your bio which I want to ask. What does a 10-year crypto noob do? Like, is that the space that you're in when you say now you're focused more on that? Are you still on the investment side, or like also define a 10-year crypto noob?
Yeah, I know. Kind of been meaning to change that for a while.
I like it. I personally like it.
No, so kind of the trajectory kind of went from dove into the Silicon Valley world. I lived there for a bit and kind of learned not in the most efficient way.
So
but
this is after China.
After China came, really dove in, and I said, this is what I want to do. Like, win, lose, or draw. I said, I think I made a self-block to myself saying, I'm good with doing this and forever. Like, I even if I fail, like, I'm fine with failing, and I want to keep sticking to this world of tech in Silicon Valley. And then so I went from that. I actually had a startup that got acquired called Polymath Labs. And
I think weren't you guys downtown Toronto?
Yeah, this is kind of a crazy story, but
let's hear it.
So this is after China, kind of during I was doing these private equity investments. I had another startup called Polymath Labs, and I had a shell company named that, so I just used it. And it was actually really interesting. I like doing the new shiny object thing. So crypto, this was in VR. So this was virtual reality. And what I did is I tried on what was called the Oculus Rift DK1. It was the first developer kit of the Oculus Rift. I just tried it on at like a conference or something. And I was like, holy shit, this is really cool. There's like a roller coaster going around. I'm like, I have to stop what I'm doing and try something. So I was kind of thinking, and I called my buddy in real estate. You guys know Tridel, the builders.
Yeah.
His name's Alessandro. He's part of the family that started
Delzato?
Deli.
Yeah, man. I played hockey with him.
Yeah, legend. A great kid.
He went to Crescent.
He went to Crescent.
I played hockey with him back in, oh my gosh, probably like 2006.
Yeah, complete beauty.
Beauty.
So I called him. I'm like, hey, I just tried this thing on. Is there something like, it was a roller coaster game, but I see like a more commercial use for like real estate. And I'm not a real estate guy, but I'm like, what if we could like build virtual tours of pre-construction condos, and we could have some of your sales reps like use it as a tool to like, have future tenants owners walk through the unit before it's built and like kind of get a more immersive experience for it. That was the big idea.
Wow.
It was a bit early because it was still like you got dizzy doing it, and we learned when we were testing it out, like little things like women didn't want to get their hair messy when you put the thing on. It was still kind of early, but so what I did, I went on LinkedIn. I looked for some for VR. You need video game developer skills, so like 3D modeling, shading, things like this. That's how you build these environments. So I went on LinkedIn and I found some guys who did that, and we formed a little team and a little company, and we built a demo, and we and you could actually go in. And there was a unit at 10 York, which is a Tridel building that we virtualized. And you could go in and customize the interior and have that cue the developer and have it like built to your standards as you went in. And I still have the demo, and we showed Deli and all those guys and got some feedback. And fast forward to the end, I was raising money for it, and someone made an offer to acquire the whole thing, and they wanted to take it public in Canada. And I said, sure, let's negotiate. So we go down to the negotiation table, and it was this guy named Tom Griffiths. So he's like a kind of an old school private equity guy. And the term sheet, or the APA, the asset purchase agreement, was done. I had my buddy, he was a hockey buddy from my early days, who was just a new lawyer, do it. And at the last second, he stands up and he's like, son, deal's off. We're not doing this. We're not doing business with someone like you. And I was like, no, the deal's not off. We have the LOI signed. What are you talking about? He said, we refuse to do business with someone who names their company Polymath Labs. I swear to you, I have this framed in my office. My hockey playing buddy, new lawyer, made a typo on the articles of incorporation and wrote an E instead of an A, and it was Polymath Labs, the name of the company. I swear. And it took me, we eventually salvaged it, and we laugh about it now, but it was like this close for the deal for falling apart. So that was
this guy's selling crack. He's trying to sell us a VR company. It's a big money laundering scheme.
So that the deal went through. They vended it into another company.
Wait, what went through your head when you stood up and was like, this deal's not going through? Were you like, did you
mad.
look at your lawyer buddy and be like, how the hell did you screw that up? Like,
he's like,
new lawyer? Like,
and he told me, he's like, you have to promise never to tell the story. I said, you have my word.
What's his name?
No, that part I won't say. But, he's a fantastic lawyer now. But So that kind of dovetailed. That was cool. That was kind of like my first kind of soup to nuts exit that I did, and got through the whole process. It wasn't like a ridiculous amount of money, but it was a nice exit, and it was cash. It was a nice cash deal, so that was cool.
Heck yeah.
And then and that's actually, people say, moving into what I do now, like that's, again, I have two stories for the name of Polymath, my current company. One is like, Polymath, it means you're good at a lot of things, Renaissance man. But the real answer is I was too cheap to go incorporate a new company. And part of the agreement is I got to keep the name Polymath for a future business. So that kind of ended over.
Saved a grand.
Okay, because saved a grand. And yeah, that's kind of what I do now. And that, again, the theme of kind of pivoting and kind of evolving from one thing to the next. The fund I was telling you about, where we were investing in these online businesses, it was called Digital Assets International, and another one was called Wired. And we woke up one morning and we said, hey, we've got all this EBITDA, it was growing like crazy. And we said, what if we could tokenize the fund? And what if we could be the world's first tokenized fund, or one of the first tokenized funds, and we could be a crypto coin that pays a dividend? And at the time, that was like a really novel idea. And that's how kind of my current business started. Is we were just saying, we had an idea and said, hey, we have this great fund. What if we could tokenize the fund on the blockchain? And what would that allow us to do? We didn't even really know. It was just more like,
by tokenize it, you mean like do a coin offering and like, but how, can you explain that for us? Because I mean, I know very, very little about.
Totally, yeah. And I'll try to not use too much jargon, but it's taking the units of ownership in an asset. So in this case, it's a fund. So LP shares in a fund. So that's like the ownership of the fund, just like shares in a public company. This is how funds are divided up. And we're going to token it. So instead of a share certificate that lives in a filing cabinet on a piece of paper, like from the 1900s, now it's a token that lives on a blockchain. And what can you do with that? You can have like this concept of, liquidity, where you can actually have, cross-jurisdictional trading of that coin on exchanges, which brings more liquidity. You can raise more money. It's more efficient. There's lots of like cool things you can do with a token that lives on a blockchain backed by a real asset. Like, so we're talking about like Bitcoin, Ethereum.
Yep.
I was very fortunate to be early into that sector as well. And that's kind of what happened next after I sold the VR company. And that was the next thing that merged. It said, hey, we have this fund and we have this new passion I have in crypto. This is like 2015, 2016. And
so this is before it blew up.
Before it blew up.
2018 when
before it blew up.
took off.
And I was like really kind of nerding out in that space, and very early, like in 2012, I bought my first Bitcoin.
Well, you paid off big time.
Yeah, this was
Probably bought it for what? Few $100.
$20 on eBay. $20 on eBay. I still have the receipt, and that was like,
I'll never forget. They used to sell Bitcoin at just south of Spadina and King. Yeah, that little
Bitcoin
townhouse.
Decentral.
Yeah,
Yep.
I remember walking by. My brother was telling me about it. I'm like, I have no idea what this is. I know nothing about it. Fast forward a couple years later, I paid like, I didn't buy full Bitcoin, but I ended up buying it at like 18K or something ridiculous. I bought back in at like 7, so I'm okay now.
Attaboy, yeah, no.
I bought back in at 7, so
I'm actually
all right.
meeting after this. I'm meeting the guy who founded that Decentral place. Yeah, Anthony. He's quite a character. I'm going to see him after this.
Small world.
Yeah. So
Probably should have had better ads. I would have bought that day. When
I know, dude. I know.
It was like a little.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying it was just like a little sign. Didn't make it look flashy. Next thing you know,
you got to remember too, he didn't make it look flashy because it wasn't flashy then too. Like it kind of was, but it wasn't. And I told this story, we were talking about this like last night. In the first time I heard about Ethereum was probably like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. The guy who founded Ethereum is a Russian kid, right?
Yep.
He was on the cover of Forbes magazine.
Yep.
I was flying somewhere. I was going to like Europe in the summer, and I see Forbes there, and I see this guy, and he was announced that he's worth $200 million at this point. I didn't know, I'm like, what the hell is Ethereum? Like, what is this?
No.
Picked it up, started reading about it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Talked about Bitcoin, talked about Ethereum, and explained blockchain. Again, enough that I can understand a little bit. I don't know nearly enough. I understand the concept.
Yeah.
And then like the craze started happening. I'll be honest, I sat at the sidelines. I'm like, if I don't understand something enough, I can't put my money into it. I can't, like, I like tangible. and stuff. So I'm like, I think this is a little too crazy.
Yeah.
I made this point, like when I see people posting on their Instagram story, hey, can someone tell me about crypto? I want to invest some money. I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit of a red flag here.
Me and myself, I'm a little more invest in things I don't understand. That's just kind of my, which is a lot of things.
But the biggest thing too, I was talking about this because recently, I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, Cash App and Jack Dorsey went and put a big investment, a big play into it.
Yep.
Which I like reading that the people think that now they've kind of officially set a floor that they think for crypto. You can probably speak more to this for Bitcoin, but my theory, just as someone who just likes to watch how people kind of react to certain market trends, is that like anything in life, the early adopters come, a bubble bursts, and people lose some money. People who stuck with it understand the concepts of it and the fundamentals, ride it out or kind of come back in. And I know that lately you've kind of been hearing people creeping back in. And
it's a really good insight.
Now it's kind of, now that the Cash App has almost legitimized it, because from before, one of the other reasons I never bought is you'd have to get a wallet or something and invest, and you could lose it and get hacked. I think Cash App being a legitimate platform backed by a billionaire founder of 2 big startups and Square, it kind of gives it some more legs to stand on. So anyways, those are just my kind of thoughts on it as an outsider.
No, it's a really good insight. It's actually the best analogy of crypto, and just to like back up on and give kind of a macro view, is the internet. So the internet in 1980, 1990 was very technical, was very hard to use. There was no user interfaces yet. It was really clunky. It didn't like work fully. And you had the dot-com bubble because people are like, holy shit, this could be the next big thing. And then all the speculators rushed into it. And then you had the huge dot-com bust, the biggest market bust in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. But guess what? The NASDAQ is like 3x the height of what it was back then now, or something crazy.
Yeah.
And just like you said, you had that kind of S curve, the early adopters and the hype cycle, and then the crash. And then what happened in that crash? Apple was founded. Google. Amazon was founded. Google was founded. All these companies just ignored the noise, the speculators, the hype, and they were just building. The pictures of Jeff Bezos and his garage building it. No hype, no like
nothing flashy, like it.
Building company, and crypto's going through literally the exact same thing. We had the huge run-ups. It's kind of compressed because crypto's just crazier. So there's like
also the rate of technological advancement now. It went from like if you actually graphed it, it's like this, and then 90s kind of hit, and it starts going up, and now it's going up like it's hitting that inflection point where just everything's climbing exponentially. So crypto will probably be a condensed crash to rise again if it does.
Exactly. And with just the last point is kind of on. The internet analogy is very important because now crypto is becoming more usable. It's becoming more mainstream. We have apps like Coinbase where it's indistinguishable from your regular brokerage account. And the whole point of it is you need to abstract away the fact that you're using crypto. So the average person doesn't need to know how crypto works. Just like the average person doesn't know how the internet works. They don't know what TCP/IP is. They don't know how the stack works with hosting and servers and things like this. You don't need to know that. The end user just cares about what they're trying to do and what problems they're trying to solve.
So the value of it as a currency, like just to that point to extend upon it, I'm sure, not maybe the average person, but I'm sure a lot of people don't understand how regular fiat currencies work, right? Like it's like, I mean, until like high school, university, you don't understand, even I didn't understand all the fundamentals of how you can print and inflate dollars and all that stuff. And
some people don't understand how basic credit works.
Very true.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're looking at, so I guess what you're trying to say is like if you look at it from a perspective of like a currency more as using the term crypto and trying to understand all the fundamentals and the behind the scenes, you look at it as more as a currency? Or from an investment perspective are you talking about? Like
I just mean like the technology itself. Like the coins are kind of the speculative thing that come and go. I think they are important as well. The coins power the network. They have to be designed very well. But remember, Bitcoin was a white paper. It was released anonymously. And it was open source.
Have they ever figured out, like, still no
clue? No clue. There's been some fraudsters claiming to be the guy.
Is it a guy like what's it the name of
Satoshi Nakamoto. Yeah, and he's like the cult kind of leader. No, people don't want to find out who he is. That would like take away from the mystique of it.
Wait, sorry, say this again. There's like
he can probably explain
an anonymous Japanese guy that apparently created Bitcoin?
The alias that it was created as, that it was founded, I guess, is a name. I'll let you explain.
Sorry, but before you tell us, the first time I ever heard of Bitcoin was I watched a documentary on Vice. This is probably 2013 or 2014 on Silk Road. Mm-hmm. It was like the random
the online store
where you buy basically
the dark web
anything. Yeah. Like it's basically, I think, drugs and...
Doing a school project, were you?
No, I was literally watching... It was a Vice documentary.
Doing a school.
Yeah, I was watching a Vice documentary, and that's like how I came up with Bitcoin. They're like, yeah, you got to pay online with cryptocurrency. I had no idea what it was. And they said Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then you hear the stories about people that paid for Domino's pizza with Bitcoin 5 years ago.
Yeah, worth like 20 mil for the pizza now. And
sorry, get back to this Shomatomo guy.
Toshi Nakamoto.
So Bitcoin, so a white paper is like the technical spec that an anonymous person, he put his name on, but like not any identity to it, released in 2008. So
that's when Bitcoin started?
That's when Bitcoin started. Okay. That was the genesis of Bitcoin. And it's like a movie. Like there was like this anonymous guy, and then he passed it on to like a guy named Gavin Andreessen, and then he kind of took it from there, and it kept kind of snowballing.
Is Gavin Andreessen related to Mark Andreessen?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
But so the point is, like, it was released very low fanfare in the chat forums and things like this, and it was just like a proposal for a new currency, and it was called a new peer-to-peer currency. It was immutable, meaning you can't prevent a transaction. So like on credit cards, the company can do chargebacks or whatever, and they can reverse transactions. Bitcoin is immutable. And because it's immutable, it can also be decentralized. So that means there's no central, you'll see that word a lot, decentralization. And that's what a lot of people get excited about, is like our current financial system is centralized, and you have all these like middlemen and rent seekers that take transaction fees and kind of screw the little guy in a lot of way.
Isn't that the banks?
And the banks and
anybody who can have an impact or influence on the value of the dollar, where it goes, how many hands are in it.
Like
the
I
rent
guess
seekers.
Yeah, okay.
And Bitcoin came out and they said there's two things that it came out with. It came out with the blockchain you guys have heard of, and it came out with Bitcoin, which is the token that lives on top of the blockchain. So it's kind of two things, and it's important to like separate those two things, because all these new coins like Ethereum are based on the original white paper called the Bitcoin blockchain. And that's, without Bitcoin, there's no Ethereum. And that's what started it all. And now, because it's open source, this is a concept in software, it's free. Anyone can use it. And a lot of people don't
mine it, right?
Anyone can mine it. And a lot of people don't know this, but most of the internet today is powered by open source software. It's not owned and controlled by one company.
Isn't the difference between Linux and Microsoft?
Yes.
Linux was the open source. Is this? I don't know, but I'm just asking because I remember hearing
that's a great example. Linux is an open source foundation, and Microsoft Windows is a for-profit.
Linux is the opposite of, like, so you have Windows on your computer.
Yeah.
Linux is the open source version. So Microsoft basically controls Microsoft. So if I go to Microsoft and open it up, and Microsoft Word opens up, Microsoft makes all that. Linux is like the developer community and tech, like and engineers can contribute to it, right?
Is Linux big?
Yeah, it's big. It powers a lot of things underneath. Again, quietly underneath, like Android. Android is open source. Mm-hmm. There's iOS and there's Android.
So Linux is like the Android.
Exactly. Like and iOS is like this kind of like big corporate company.
iOS and Windows are like the sexy marketing. Let's put a bow on it, package it, and say we're the brand. This is this. People like to buy brands. Whereas Linux is like, oh, I can have like an Android phone, or I can have this stainless steel iPhone. It's cool.
Walmart versus Giant Tiger kind of thing.
And I think we'll come back to crypto, but like the cool thing about software and open source and everything is you can do things so fast and you can scale so quickly. And like, if you want to go create a company today, it's all-time record cheap to do it. There's so many pre-existing things out there that you can piggyback off of that can save you time and money. So for example, I remember early in my career, I had to fire a marketing person because I needed her to create a web page, and she was like building it from scratch. Like she was doing I'm like, it's not 1994. Like there's so many free open source tools, plugins, libraries of websites that are beautifully designed, that just you plug and play the text you want. It's responsive. Like, use your head. Like, we don't need to do things the hard way now. And with software, like whether it's open source code, like hardcore back-end Linux stuff that none of us understand, but it's very impactful. Like, that's there for the taking. Like, but not just that, like there's so many things now that are free and available on the internet because of this movement of open source, because of this concept of giving things away for free. And I think that's really exciting. And
so
that's
like WordPress?
WordPress is a great example. Okay. That is open source. That's another, that
powers building a website.
That powers like
WordPress.
80% of
Not
the
very
internet.
good at it, but
Well, there's a lot of stuff, even the stuff that our team is doing. Like we're working on something behind the scenes, kind of like in the app space and the tech space, and a lot of stuff you can do. You can rip a lot of stuff, like whether it's UI stuff, whether it's stuff for mobile, whether it's buttons. Yeah, it can literally be taken.
As an entrepreneur, you're the producer of the movie, or like the puzzle master. You're putting the pieces together, so you shouldn't have to like do anything from scratch. Really, you can. Your payment processor is Stripe. It's already there. You just hook that in. You use a template from Theme Forest, which costs $9, and now you have a front end. And you have like the shopping cart is done, or you go to somewhere like Shopify and you pay like $80 a month, and now everything is there for you. So now as an entrepreneur, it's just a matter of finding a product to sell. It's called product market fit. Finding a product in a market, and that's your job as an entrepreneur, is getting to that sync up as fast as possible.
Because why reinvent the wheel, right? Like one of the biggest things when it comes to stuff, like whether it's a website, whether it's like all this stuff in that space, a lot of it comes down to the UX. The UI is important too, but the UX is behavioral, right? Like let's use dating apps for example. Like that swipe
school project as well.
Yeah, exactly. I spent a lot of time reading. No, but like those dating apps, right? They created the function of swiping. Like it's now used as a term: swipe left, swipe right, whatever, or up, whatever it is. But if you're creating a dating app, no. But if you think about it, they all kind of look the same. They use the same thing. Like, why would you reinvent the wheel and create a new behavior pattern, right? A lot of these things you want is like, again, social media. It's that infinite scroll. It's that passing time. Like you're going to go and reinvent the wheel. Like you already have people who have a behavior to it. You can kind of, if you have a better product, or you can find that product market fit, and you kind of leverage that stuff that's already been done. You're working smart. You're getting to market quicker, and you're kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not quantify, like validate your idea. Yeah. Get that product market fit, and then you can iterate from there, right?
Experiments and testing and all these things. But back to crypto. So that this is my like purpose is I just am so from as soon as I got into it, and in the early days when we were all just learning about it and we were going to conferences in like 20, gosh,
gonna age yourself here.
14, 20. It was just like it was just such a pure passion of the crypto community in the early days. And that, like, honestly, it sounds like cheesy, but it was really, looking back, it was like, I get nostalgic because people were there for the right reasons. There was no money to be made yet. It was just like an idea, a concept of like decentralization and freedom and technology and merging all these things together. And I just got completely immersed in this world. And it was a matter of action, like me going to these things, but also luck, because guess what emerged in our backyard in in Toronto? Ethereum. And Vitalik Buterin.
Sorry, Ethereum's...
That's his name, Vitalik Buterin. I was trying to think of it.
It was created in Toronto?
Yeah. In that building, you almost bought a Bitcoin at. That was the station of Ethereum in the early days. And not a lot of people know this.
What's Ethereum? So I can ask, what's Ethereum moving at right now? Like, is it...
It's like $300-400 somewhere in there. And
but it's the second biggest coin. No, because Bitcoin Cash is
bigger,
no?
Ethereum's number 2.
Yeah. Ethereum's number 2.
But not a lot of people know this. This is a crazy stat. At its peak, Ethereum created more millionaires than any other company in the history of the world. Over 10,000.
What?
Yeah. And a lot of that was in Toronto. And you talk about Silicon Valley. There's a crypto Silicon Valley right here in Toronto because of that event. You know, in Silicon Valley, like a founder starts a company, it sells for this crazy amount of money, and then it gets... Now this founder has all this money. What does he do? He reinvests it into the next startup, and it gets recycled back into the community. That happened here in Toronto. And we had, including my company, Polymath, like we were the benefactors of kind of the post-Ethereum mafia of like, I was really close to the project from the early days and, you know, was early reading the white paper and getting excited about it and helping out. And then it just took off. And it was like a really exciting, and not just the price took off and crashed and came up again, but Ethereum is now the most important piece of infrastructure in the entire crypto space. This next wave, you'll be hearing a lot in the coming months and years about DeFi, decentralized finance. And this is all powered by Ethereum. So like all of the promise and the hype, just like in the .com bubble of everyone's like, oh, the internet's going to be huge, pump, and then dump. Well, they were right. They were just early. You know, and now look at the internet, right? The top, out of the top 100 companies in the world now, that's something like a crazy amount is tech companies now.
The ones that weather the first
out of the
storm?
top, I think the top 5 are all tech companies, like Amazon, Google, like it's all
FANG, whatever.
It's all the top
Facebook,
5.
Amazon, Apple,
Google,
Netflix. Google. Netflix not the biggest, but they compare it. They added it in there now.
Man, I
and
could've
those ones came out of that .com, but they weathered the storm. They like back then Google was search. You didn't realize Google was going to be the number one ad revenue company in the world, right? Facebook was a place. Well, they kind of came later, right? But Apple back then was not what it is today. Like they had the desktops, and now they're a whole ecosystem. Yeah. Like everything we do is powered more or less. So
I could have been a tech millionaire if I just walked into that place that day.
You have no one to blame but yourself.
That's it. Kicking myself in the teeth right now. All I had to do is walk in. I saw it.
If it makes you feel any better, I'll share offline. I'll show you how much money I lost on the way down. That'll make you feel a little better.
I don't feel as bad.
Well, listen, if you bought Google back then and hung on to it this whole time, back then it was trading at maybe a couple bucks, and now it's up to a couple thousand. So I mean, you buy some Ethereum now, wait about 10, 15 years, and you'll be
I've seen on all my crypto. I sold enough.
Did you not? Yeah.
So I sold enough to break even. So I've only got maybe $300-400 left in my Coinbase account, because I probably spent like $1,000.
Coinbase is a good.
Do you know what, for like an everyday user like me, I don't understand.
I use Coinbase.
I bought I bought about probably $1,000 worth when this whole bubble started. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago now, and I bought in at maybe 20K. I bought maybe like $1,000 worth of a bunch of different coins, and it went up to 24, 25 Bitcoin at least, and I was like, okay, I'm doing all right. And then it dropped to like 10. I'm like, hey, I'm already in. I might as well just keep it. I bought on my credit card too, so technically,
I would look. This is like. I tell you, this is what I advise people.
Yeah, hit us with some knowledge here.
Just like, it's a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like the prices, I get sucked into like checking CoinMarketCap and looking at the price movement and stuff. Yeah. But it's so detached from reality in a lot of ways, and it's so meaningless in terms of what's actually happening. Like, I tell people just average in. Like, don't do the crazy coins. Like, do Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum if you're feeling really frisky. And just like, learn about, like, use it. Like, what's the point of this? Like, transacting, what can you do on Ethereum? And it's like, think about it this way. The people who did the best with Ethereum were the people who kind of had long-term views on it, and they said, I'm just holding it. I'm just, like, I remember I bought 1 Bitcoin when Ethereum launched. You could get 2,000 Ethereum. And the one Bitcoin I bought for $20, you could get 2,000 Ethereum. And at the height of the market, that was worth $2 million. But I never sold it. I was like, I don't want to ever touch that. That's just like, I have a long-term thesis here. And moving into the new phase of crypto now, and I'm not going to get too technical, but the people I think who are going to do the best are the ones who kind of understand the basics of it and have a long-term view on it. And then you not get like buying and selling and trading and stuff like that. It's just, and even with stocks, I tell people all the time, like, no one makes money trading stocks. Period.
Day trading is one of the biggest, like,
it's a scam.
It's a scam out there. Yeah.
People delete Robinhood, get wealth front and said, or if you're in Canada, get wealth simple. Like, that is like 100x better way to grow wealth over the long term. And this is just like facts. It's not like really debatable. So whether it's crypto, whether it's stocks, it's like, just don't day trade, have a long-term outlook, average in over time, like take a bit of your salary going. I love, like, one of my favorite companies is Wealthsimple. It's a Canadian company that you give it. It's not day trading. It does all the work for you. It's on autopilot. I'm lazy. It diversifies for you. It does tax loss harvesting, which is like this complicated thing to save you taxes. It does. You can log in and see it anytime. You don't have to go and talk to like a guy in a suit at a broker, at a bank or something like that. Like, we're millennials. We don't want to do that. We just want it all to be online. We don't want to talk to people. We don't want to get sold products. I remember
we don't understand.
When I sold my first company, I was like, okay, I'm going to go invest it now. And so I went to TD and I went to a guy, the high net worth broker there. Like, this is where all the rich people go to give their money. So I went in and gave him a bunch of money. And like 2 years later, I'm like,
making you 1.5% or something.
Yeah, and I was like, and I'm looking at it. It was like, I actually looked at the documents, and it's like I was getting charged 2.9% MER fee on my money, and I was like 3% going to go in some mutual fund, and I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, it's like, and I said I have to get out, and then they said, oh no, you're not allowed to get out. There's a DCF breaking fee if you want to leave this fund, and I'm like, all right, I don't care. I'm paying the fee. Get me out of here. The new era now is like, ETFs, it's low fees, it's like using robo advisors to do it, whether that's traditional stocks or crypto. Like that's where the world is going. That's where like young people like us, that's how to build wealth over the long term, in my opinion.
One thing that, and I'm not giving this advice to by any means, no one take trading advice or buying stock advice from me at all. But the one school of thought that I've always followed, to your point, is like do things for the long game. But also like I just buy stuff, number one, that I understand always, because I can. You know, like the first stock I ever bought was Nike. I've said this before. Nike, everything I wear besides work clothes and all that is Nike. I like the brand. I think it's strong, and I think it's cool. I like buying it, so I'm going to use it. So I'm going to provide back to it. Yep. And just from there, everything I've bought in my life is stuff that I either enjoy using, I think is good, has some future value, and that's what I do. And then I'm more in tune with it. Like if I open a news app, I know that I'm interested in reading about sports, which relates to Nike, and it kind of translates. I mean, I bought Shake Shack, which got hit pretty bad, but like I like burgers. I love Shake Shack, so I win it. But I just think like I'm not a genius. Again, this is not advice for anyone. Don't buy what I buy, but that was my approach. Buy things for the long term. I buy it, I put my money in, and I let it sit there. I did the same thing. I took my money away from my bank recently because it was in mutual funds that I was like, I would look at my thing at the end of the year and I'm like 1.2%. I was like, I could, if I just threw darts and just guessed 10 stocks, pick the 10 best tech stocks, probably going to average out to even the worst case scenario slightly more.
Literally, yeah. So, and exactly. And the facts, like this is just the data. It's that 9 out of 10 professional hedge fund managers don't beat the S&P 500 index.
Yeah.
These are professional.
Yeah, I was going to say, John.
Our brothers are very similar.
Yeah, John tells me,
very smart, like
just invest in these ones, boom, like it's guaranteed over 5 years to make 5%.
Tells you the S&P ETF, eh?
Yeah, that's it.
And
Vanguard, VOO, whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, John, I don't understand. What do I do with my money? He's like, just here it is. I'm like, okay, thanks. Can you just do it for me? Here's all my passwords.
Yeah, dude, Vanguard, that's like, and then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to be stressed about it. You just forget about it. And you're going to do way better than even the professional traders. Like the whole active money management is dying. I'm fully fledged believing you don't need humans picking stocks for a fee, doing worse than just buying the S&P 500. Warren Buffett had a bet with someone.
No, it wasn't. Was it Paul something? One of the. It was a big broker, and he bet him like, if you can beat the S&P 500 or something, I'll pay you like a billion.
If anyone can beat the S&P 500, that's not just that one guy, anyone.
He'll give him $1 billion or something
over a decade, and net of fees, and then just everyone got demolished by it at the end of the day. So it's
and he's probably the best investor. Some say Charlie Munger, but he's the best investor in the last. Whatever, and he just talks about compound interest. And
this is a crazy thing. He's an active manager, so he's like
saying even I can't beat the market.
He's saying I think he actually does. Like Berkshire,
but in the last few years, it's been.
But they're kind of like a public thing. Berkshire is public, and they do all these there's active management of like picking stocks bad, but then there's like. Warren Buffett gets in Snowflake at discount. Like that's active.
But he also buys. He gets on the board. Like the companies he buys, he's not buying a couple thousand stocks. He's put I think he bought Snowflake and Palantir. Yeah. Like he put $1 billion or close to $1 billion into each one, right?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about like stock pickers.
Yes.
But there's active money managers that create tons of value. Like they're called activist investors a lot. Like guys like Bill Ackman and these guys. Guys go. I love this. This is what I'd be doing if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now. You go in and you buy a bunch of stock in a public company to have like a meaningful, but not a controlling stake because it's too expensive to do that. So you own like 10%. That's what these guys do. And then they start writing public letters to the shareholders publicly, like on CNBC, saying these management are flying private jets. They don't have the best shareholders' interest in mind. We recommend that we replace current management with new management that we select that are going to care about the shareholders more. And now they have what's called a proxy battle. And that's what the activist investor is trying to do, is convince the other shareholders via proxy voting to change the board, to hire new CEOs. And that happens a lot. You have bloated companies that aren't shareholder focused, and that's part of the natural selection of the system of capitalism, is saying, hey, let's go and get rid of these people who don't have shareholders in mind, and let's go put in new people. So I think that's really cool. Yeah. And those guys can make crazy amounts of money because they do a lot of like levered buyouts where they like borrow crazy amounts of money and buy these companies,
up too.
And there's a significant amount of billionaires who have got there by doing that. And I think it's a great function of Wall Street. It's like making things more efficient and finding new owners. And I think that's
have you watched Succession?
No, a bunch of people said that I should watch
It's
it.
literally like just watch Succession. I marathoned it in like 2 days early COVID.
I'm down. I need a new show.
It's really good, and the new season's I think coming out soon.
I've after watching Trailer Park Boys a third time in a row, like I think it's time. It's
time to change it up, man.
It's time to mix it up a little bit.
Get some a little more stimulating. Honestly, yeah, it's real. Like as you're talking, I'm just thinking like I was a real big cynic with crypto, but then I also, to your point, the .com, how it came and went. Like I'll say this. I'm not psychic by any means, and I'm not professing to know this stuff. But I'm
not psychic.
But I'm not psychic. I told Rick this the other day. Literally at the beginning of this week, for some reason I thought about crypto. It came to my head, and I was like, I literally thought about similar to just booms and busts in the world.
Yeah.
I think I was maybe listening to Peter. I think it was Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 or something. But
yeah.
I was listening to something about how booms and busts happen. The early adopters, the point we had earlier. And I was like, man, I was kind of like that with crypto. Like it came, it rose really fast. And like lately I've been seeing little tidbits in the news, people talking about this and this. And this is like Monday or earlier this week. And I was like, oh, man, maybe it's going to come around. And I opened my phone a couple days ago and I see Jack Dorsey buys 10 million worth of crypto. And I was like, nah, I was psychic.
It's not, to me, the moment for me was when, and I remember this in the early days of Ethereum, because I was sitting there, I forget if Vitalik was on the phone or Anthony, but Naval in 2014 reached out to these Ethereum guys out of Toronto to learn more. And I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't fuck around. Like this is something. And so that was back then. But now it's like the smartest guys. Like I respect certain money managers like more than anyone. Like Andreessen Horowitz, like the top of the food chain guys and girls there. And they have doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on crypto as funds. They've raised $500 million funds just to invest in like crazy
crypto startups, or spending, investing in coins,
crypto startups. And the thesis there is they think, just to go one layer deeper with the internet again, it's about the cycles and kind of the stack of the technology. What I mean by that is when you were in 1980, the way to make money in 1990, the way to make money on the internet was investing in infrastructure companies like Cisco, IBM, people who were building
running cables in the ground,
plumbing, because
the plumbing.
No one made money on applications yet because the infrastructure wasn't there to support it. Netflix couldn't exist until you had
you had to
fiber.
think critical mass and have a mass acceptance of this technology.
So the technology, it's like building a house. So the tangible guy, you can't put the furniture in until you built the foundation, until you put the scaffolding up. And it's the same in tech. That's why they're called software engineers. You're actually engineering a product, just like you're engineering a house or whatever. And so as an investor, you're saying, where should I invest in now? In 1980 and 1990, it was infrastructure for the internet. In 2000 and 2010, what's the best place to invest now? Apps.
Yeah.
Google, Uber, Facebook, these are all billion-dollar companies. There are applications on top of the infrastructure that was already built. Okay, so you with me? And then when you go to crypto, it's the exact same dynamic. We're in the infrastructure phase. There's no one making money on apps, crypto apps yet, because it's not ready yet. The plumbing hasn't been
mass adopted.
Built.
It's
so the guys like Andreessen, the smartest guys, and I'm going to tell a cool little hack where you can like copy what those guys do. But with we'll go offline here for a sec. But those guys are betting right now this cycle, because it's 2020. This cycle is infrastructure still. So that's where those guys are investing. The applications aren't there yet. In 2030, now you're going to have decentralized apps like decentralized Uber, decentralized Facebook, decentralized Apple, and those are going to be where you want to put your money.
So that means that nobody owns the app. It's as a platform, and it just goes peer-to-peer sharing. So if I want to call an Uber, Uber's not making any money. The price of the taxi is only what I'm paying that guy to pick me up.
Mm-hmm. And you're not beholden. I was talking to my friend, and Snapchat banned her, and all her photos are gone, and she can't get them. And it's just like, that's a centralized phenomena. Like, you don't control it. You're just a product. Someone else does. And so my little hack, what you can do with crypto is, because these coins are public in a way, they're trading. As an investor, you can actually like Andreessen Horowitz, the venture capital fund. Yep. You can't copy their venture investments in software startups because you don't have access to it. Yeah. Like, you don't. If Uber, when it was getting started, you can't get access to it unless you know the founder
Private investor,
or you're Andreessen. Like, you just can't get access to it, and they're not liquid. It takes 10 years for these companies to get liquid and IPO. With crypto, it's a whole different paradigm. And what you can do is actually, what Andreessen Horowitz, the crypto arm of what they do, it's public. They tell you what they're investing in, and it's liquid. So you can actually mirror what they do. And I told you it's all about kind of almost being lazy, like with investing. It's just like buy Vanguard and go to sleep and don't be stressed. Same with crypto. Like, why am I going to do due diligence on all these deals when I can just
Follow what the
copy
big dogs are
the
doing.
big dogs who have 100 employees just doing due diligence
All day long.
and they're what they do is public, and you can just go buy
Everything
Whatever they do.
the coins publicly, what they have. You couldn't do that before, and it's something you can do now. So like, I try not to do too many side investing in crypto now, because it's like such a black hole you can go down. Even for me, who kind of knows a bit of the ropes here, it's still a huge black hole. But what I do, I just publicly, I have someone help me, like, say, do some research. What are all these top funds investing in? Which ones are liquid? Because sometimes the coins aren't liquid yet.
Yeah.
They're not launched, so I don't get access to those ones yet. But as soon as they are, you can go and build a portfolio copying the big dogs. So that's another example of just being smart, kind of being lazy in a way, and trying to do things that create leverage, like something our buddy Naval talks about a lot too.
I really
that's
like.
a
You
good
should
piece.
listen. It's really easy to listen, and honestly, they're really good. I've gone.
Yeah, I'm
through
definitely
going
gonna
to
take a listen to that one.
Dude. I'll be honest. I'm not 100% sold. Like, crypto's going to change the world, but you've honestly opened my eyes to things that I didn't kind of anticipate, and just like. I mean, as you're talking, I'm trying not to zone out and think too much, but like my head's kind of like turning a bit, and I think it's
I'm
probably a
back
lot
in.
more interesting
I'm
than
back
in. Yeah, Rick's easy. Rick's like, he's gonna
Get
after this is
Dave
done. So
Por- get
Rick's gonna be
Dave
like, here's
Portnoy on the
$100
podcast.
I didn't say this. I didn't finish before, but yeah. So when I bought my 1,000, when Bitcoin dropped to like 7,000, maybe a year ago or something, I bought another $500 because I'm like, fuck, 7,000. I bought at 20. Like, if I lose, I lose. Like, it is what it is. It's on my credit card. I got some points at least.
The gambler's fallacy. Double
Yeah.
down on your losing.
So then when it went back up to 15 or 18 or something, I sold that 500. So I technically broke even again, or I came close to breaking even on my original investment. So now I've got probably another $500 left in my my Coinbase account, split through the accounts. And I said, I'm like, I would love to every month buy like $100 worth of something.
There you go.
Like, I transfer $100 into my mutual funds every month.
Yeah. Yep.
Instead of doing that, it's like I strongly believe in 20 years we're going to be in a cashless society.
Totally.
I think in maybe not 20, but 30 years for sure. I think their cash won't exist. Like, even now with COVID,
I never carried cash.
Same. I have to pay my clean lady in cash. I'm like, can you accept
same,
e-transfer? She goes, no. I'm like, I don't have cash.
Yeah.
Like, can I write you a check? Like,
Yeah.
what? I don't even have checks anymore.
Yeah, the checkbook.
We ran into this problem the other day. We didn't have
Yeah.
checks. It's like to pay a deposit for.
I'm sure in
rent.
your industry there's still a lot of checks flying around and stuff.
Oh yeah,
too.
a lot. Like, some is just ETF, but I'm also in a service. I mean, he's in
Yeah,
construction. We're in the
construction,
service, so a
yeah.
lot of it's paid that way.
A lot of his check.
No, I think for anyone like me included, you got to like. This is a crazy
Took off
risky
the hat.
asset.
You're getting serious now. That's the last
Game
one.
on, let's go. Let's start this podcast, baby. But it's an asset, and
Yep.
so let's talk about portfolio construction. Like, what percentage of your portfolio should be allocated to like extremely unclear high risk things? A big amount or a small amount?
I'm open to risk, so
Same,
mine's a
I'm
little
a
different.
I'm
than most.
conservative.
But
I'm very
It
conservative.
should be small. Like
Yeah.
crypto, if you're not in the world and you're not doing it every day like I am, like I'm way overexposed to it. I have no business lecturing people on portfolio construction. I'm a hypocrite. But
99% crypto,
Yeah, it's
1%
bad.
bonds.
but for laymen, just like I'm not a huge real estate guy, but I have some real estate, but like that's not my world. I have a little bit, but not. So it's like it's a small slice. Like what percentage of your portfolio should you angel invest with? Like 2 to 10%, not more. What percentage should be crypto? 2 to 5 to 10%, not more. So it's just like do a little slice. It's not, if you don't invest what you're going to cry if you lose it. And it's just part of your portfolio. It's just like you're constructing your personal wealth. Like, I think more people should think about this. Like, where are your assets? Are they all tied up in one house? That's not smart. You can't have all your assets tied up in a single asset. You have to diversify. You have to like spread it out a little bit. That's not to say you shouldn't focus on what you're good at and try to build wealth in one area, but like the rest of your assets should be generally diversified as much as possible. That's kind of my take on it. And you have to, how do you diversify it? you got to do it smart. If you all look at the pie chart of where your assets are, even if you don't have a lot of assets, it's still important to like say, oh, I'm overextended here. Yeah. Holy shit, I have way too much in crypto, and maybe I should rebalance. That's what it's called. You rebalance the portfolio and like think of it more intelligently without just putting all your eggs in one basket, basically.
I have two questions. We're nearing kind of the end here. Just to kind of give some advice to the things. I know you want to add something too, but number one, if people want to get into crypto, is there like someone like myself, what would you recommend as a starter for like, is it Coinbase to use as a wallet? Is there something else that's kind of your go-to? And then the second is like, is there a blog that you recommend, a website, some kind of literature that kind of breaks it down for people, so the listeners, if they want to get into it?
Yeah, so Coinbase is the best in terms of it's legit, it's easy to use, it feels like a regular bank account, so highly recommend that. The fees are a bit more expensive, so if you're doing like high volumes, you might have other options because the fees are high, but there's a reason they're high because it is the best. I believe that. In terms of research, it depends how serious you are about it. If you're serious about it and you want to go like double click beyond just the surface level like mainstream media version of crypto, you should check out A16Z Crypto School. So
A16Z is Andreessen Horowitz.
And so they have a crypto arm, and within that crypto, A16Z Crypto, and within that arm they have what's called a free crypto school, which is just so good. Like, I've been in crypto for a long time, and it's, for me, I need to rewatch all the videos. They're all on YouTube. They have a glossary or whatever of resources to look at. It's a little down the rabbit hole, so like that might not be the best place to get started, but if you're serious about it and you know a little bit about it, you should check that out and see if it resonates with you. In terms of like what I recommend for Coinbase as well, like they have a blog and they have like internal resources on explaining crypto, what it is, and I think that's a good place to get started.
And Coinbase, sorry to interrupt there, Coinbase is good too, because you know how TD tells you like buy, the experts say buy, sell, or hold. Coinbase does something similar too.
Oh, does it do that? Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's like if you're debating selling, it'll be like, okay, hang tight, or they'll give you little timbits.
Yeah.
So I think Coinbase is great for an everyday non-crypto person like myself.
Yeah.
There's also Coin Markets, like another good one to see, like to download, just see.
Yeah. Yeah, I listen.
Binance
I found this very
is pretty good as well.
Yep.
Which one? Sorry, I cut you off there.
Binance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Binance. Yeah.
I think this was like really insightful. I
covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. I was gonna say we could keep going even longer, but just maybe we'll do a part 2.
Soon. Yeah. No. See if people got value out of it. Like another theme too is like there's so many things you can do, and just being able to focus, and that's what I struggle with too, is just like chasing shiny objects and doing all these things. But I think for everyone who cares, it's just like, it's never been easier to start a company. It's never been easier to build an audience, to create wealth. Like, people forget about like how lucky we are to like be alive today and have access to all these things. Like, imagine in our parents growing up, like how much harder it is to get going and to get reach. And now you can go create a podcast and have like millions of people. Like, you get leverage.
Maybe not millions,
but
we're on the way to 100K.
No, dude, and you can, like, that's what I'm saying. I think everyone should like take a step back and think of more ways to create like leverage in your life using the tools that are available today. Guess what? You didn't learn it in school. Your parents definitely didn't teach it to you. So you have to go to resources like podcasts and all the books that you read. Like, it's insane. You can get mentorship from like the smartest people in the world for free, on demand, whenever you want. I have a thing in my every day for lunch and learn, eat lunch at the desk, and go watch some kind of educational content that I want to learn within my industry. And like, you can just compound your knowledge that way. And then when you combine that with your network, with like, co-founders and engineers and people, it's just like really powerful and scalable what you can do.
I would agree. That's great advice. And I think it's the thing too, is like taking time every day. I do the same. I kind of block off an hour.
I can tell. Yeah. You got the,
I'm just curious about things. And I like to learn about stuff that at the moment intrigues me, like stuff I'm reading right now about that book Jonathan Haidt, I think, is interesting. But yeah, like I like to read stuff that I don't understand and kind of get into it. So I mean, crypto might be the next thing I dive into, because I do find it kind of fascinating. And
I'll think of a good book, because there's so many out there. But I'll think of a good book. Awesome. But the last thing, like, for also being being smart. Like my first company, eProf, great domain, and I didn't have enough money to buy it, but that doesn't mean you can't try. So like to this day, and this became like a really close relationship with me. I just invested in his company. The owner of eProf.com was on, you could look it up on Whois whenever you want a domain. And I'm like, oh, it's not available. Shit. And then just out of the blue, I emailed him and I said, hey, this is me. This is my story. I can't afford your domain, but would you be willing to like do an options contract where you let me borrow it to get my company off the ground? And if it goes well, then I have an option to buy it out at a price. And like, that's an example. That was my co-founder's idea, but it's an example of like, you don't need to go and spend money necessarily. You can go and get the asset and with some kind of side deal or whatever,
creative ways,
and get the best of both worlds. So they're just tying into what I was saying earlier to wrap up, just on like, don't go build a website from scratch. Go use WordPress. Don't go create an e-commerce thing from scratch. Use Shopify. Like, don't go and pay for a crazy expensive domain. Go and try to get a side deal where you can defer it later and reduce the risk of how you do it.
That's interesting.
You know, use other people's money. That's OPM whenever you can. Like, try to.
I like that.
You get no downside. We have another phrase internally at the company, PBE, proudly built elsewhere. Like, if there's something out there that already exists, like, we're not going to be offended that we didn't build it ourselves. Like, we're proud of the fact that we're smart and we just like use someone else. My biggest thing now is, so our company now, we have, we're approaching 60 people full time.
Wow.
And that was like how we always used to like network. It's like, oh, this is my company. This is our size. This is how many employees we have. But now I'm like, I like companies that are like really efficient. Like, there's companies you can have a few employees and tons of leverage, and you can have tons of revenue with just a small amount of employees. So I would encourage people to think of ways where you can get a lot of scale with the most output with the least amount of input, not in a lazy way, but in a strategic way. Yeah. Like, what kind of industries, you know, there was a company you guys have probably been on called Coin Market Cap. That's where you see all the prices of all the coins. And I know the guys, and they had like 3 guys in the company, and they just sold for 400 million. And I'm like, that is a real business. Like, not as many headaches. You don't have like
3
severance
people
packages. You don't have like all these, like, it's just like using, again,
pretty efficiently. You're really smart, right?
And doing in industries that you can scale with low marginal costs. Like, that's something to think about if you're getting started.
That's some great advice,
That's awesome,
man.
yeah.
Honestly, this has been like, if we didn't have to be somewhere, I would keep going. This has been great.
We didn't even get into like travel or anything too, because I know you do travel a lot, even for work, and you've met some amazing people. So we'll definitely do a round 2.
I'm down.
We'll definitely do a round 2 soon. But to wrap up again, as George said, this has been awesome. We want to thank you for coming on. We're glad we finally got to do this,
bro.
And it's been a while since I've seen you too.
I know, man. I know.
The Western days,
and I love the venue. You guys got a new studio coming. It's exciting, and I'm a fan listener, and I just keep up the good work.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Trevor, appreciate it.
So we've got 2 questions we always ask every guest that comes on. The first, if there was a movie about your life, who would you want to star as you?
My twin brother.
That was a quick one.
I mean, he would work for free. And he would we wouldn't need a stunt double or anything. So
that's it.
my
Perfect.
twin brother.
That's actually pretty good. That was the biggest answer we've ever gotten.
Yeah, that was insane.
The last one
Hit him,
is,
George.
if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, this one I might have to think about. When I was getting imposter syndrome, and it's this Canadian thing, like having this concept of like you can do whatever the hell you want. No, everyone's like making it up as they go along. So go big by default. Like, don't be happy with like a little thing or a little exit. Like, just like be ambitious, and there's no reason you can't. Like, I had a bit of that problem early on of just like this awe of like the Silicon Valley, and you're just a Canadian kid coming in, but like if you can have that confidence and that ambition and get rid of the imposter syndrome at
kind
the
of
door.
the Napoleon complex, like get rid of that and just think that you can be there.
Yeah, no, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Love it.
That is good advice, because I tell you, like, actually I didn't know about imposter syndrome until recently. A buddy of mine, shout out to Mark Mark Halkis is going to be on soon at some point. He told me about it because I was talking about an employee once or something, like someone we crossed paths with. And anyways, he told me about it and it kind of clicked. I was like, man, a lot of people, like even at one point in my life, like I had it as well. But that's great advice.
Cool.
Boys.
Trevor, if people want to find out more about you, your business, where can they go?
So my company, Polymath.network, and we got a lot of really exciting things coming up this year and early next year. We have a big project that is public that we're announcing that you can check out. So Polymath.network. And me personally, just my name on all socials, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. And I try to keep people updated there.
Yeah, we'll post the link, Trevor Koverko, for anybody for wondering. I don't think we said your last name at the beginning of this. So we'll post all the links in the bio, untag you. But again, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I guess signing off, pals.
See you next time.
Yeah, cheers.
Peace.